This is a 2013 Chevy Volt. It's one of the more controversial cars GM has ever made. Some people claim it's one of the most sophisticated cars on the market and give rave reviews. Others think it's sort of a white elephant and claim it's a loser, it's bleeding taxpayers. So we'll settle those questions at the end of this tape. But first we'll look at the car up close. To charge the Volt, you plug it in a wall socket. 120 volts takes around 10 hours. 240 volts about 4 hours. Once this is completed, the main battery system's good for 30 to 40 miles before it needs to be recharged again. Once you depleted the main battery by driving your extended range of 40 miles, a gasoline engine takes over. But the gasoline engine does not drive the car. It simply acts as a generator to power the battery as you're driving. This is the reverse of other hybrids where the engine drives the car and the battery is a backup to assist the engine to move. So the point is, you can drive around town on full electric, but you can take a long trip on the highway with a combination of the gas charging the electric, giving a range of just around 350 miles plus, depending on how you drive. The charging cord is stored underneath the so-called trunk area along with other battery connections. Of course, as you can see, there's no room for a spare tire, just a small air compressor pump, so you don't want to be running over nails on the freeway. You also might want to get some cans of stop leak to stick in here, just in case. By the way, if you're storing any items, this is really the only useful storage area in the back here. The cabin's a little tight. The glove box only has enough room for the owner's manual. Center console space is a little limited too. And we do get some door panel storage areas, although it doesn't hide anything from would-be thieves. Overall, the interior storage space is fine if you have small items, but anything bigger than these two handbags on the seat, you have to put them in the back trunk area. Keep that in mind if you're taking long trips. There's not much room for luggage here, although there is room for 4 adults. To get the Volt driving, first thing you do is press the power button. After that, you hit a button called the drive mode. This will allow you to choose between totally electric or combination gasoline electric, normal mode, sport mode, or climbing mountain mode. And once you're choosing that, all the information comes up on this display screen, which can be adjusted for different variations. There's also another display screen showing power flow, charging, and energy information. Now with the Volt, one thing you have to consider is that you're only running 149 horsepower, pulling a weight of just under 2 tons, at least with me sitting in it. So acceleration is not going to be stellar. Then again, with an electric motor, you're putting out maximum torque right up away from the start, and the pickup isn't really that bad. "50 miles per hour in around 7 seconds won't set any speed records, but it's more than adequate for driving around town, especially since we have lots of torque and lots of throttle response. I might add I'm in the sport mode, which seems to make it a little bit more livelier, but of course it uses more electricity and gas if you're doing so, I'm told. That might explain my 25 miles per gallon I've been getting on the engine mode alone. The drive line is extremely quiet regardless of the speed. However, the recommended tire pressures are set near the 40 pounds per square inch mark, which provides kind of a thumpy ride when going over bumps. Something you'll get used to. The steering and handling and braking are very nice for what is basically an economy car. Consumers interested in the Volt are also interested in getting good gas mileage, so I'm going to take a moment out and explain how this actually works. If you charge the battery and get your 30 to 40 miles and you don't drive any more than that on a day, you're not going to be using any fuel at all. So your gas mileage is basically infinite. On the other hand, let's say you drive 35 miles to work on fully electric and come back 35 miles on the gas charging system. Multiply that times 2, you're getting around 70 miles per gallon. If you're making lots of short trips, 20 miles at a time, taking home charging, maybe a little bit of gas on the weekend, and it goes up from there. When I got this vehicle, it showed 101 miles per gallon average. On the other hand, if you're driving on an interstate trip, strictly gas charging, you're going to average around high 20s to mid 30s. That's how it works. So depending on your driving habits, you can get a lot of good mileage out of this vehicle. But the more you drive on fully electric, the better it's going to be. It's that simple. To make a long story short, if you're driving 50 miles per day or less, then the Volt is going to prove to be very economical for you. If you do lots of highway trips out of town, your mileage is going to drop considerably. So you have to consider what type of driving habits you get before you consider the Volt. In 2011, the Volt didn't sell very well, putting out around 7,300 units, if I recall the figure right. This doesn't surprise me because the environmentalist crowd, the people who are always demanding that manufacturers make these things, are good at running their mouth. When it comes to putting their money where their mouth is, they don't do too well. They're usually the first to bail. Fortunately, in 2012, Volt sales went up to around 23,000. A lot of this had to do with the tax credits that the federal government was giving, up to $7,500 per car. And there are various states that give rebates also around $1,500 up to $7,500, according to the last figures I checked. Which means from the $41,000 price tag, you get this down to the mid or low 30s, maybe in the high 20,000s if you live in West Virginia, which I'm told gives a $7,500 rebate. But of course, these things change, so you'll have to check on the latest figures. That plus the fact that you can drive this without paying gas taxes if you use the main charging system quite a bit, makes it a pretty good deal for consumers. But the main complaint against the Volt is that the taxpayers are picking up most of the tab on this, and this is what has given it sort of an odd reputation among the conservative media, who've kind of labeled this a white elephant, so to speak. Here's the deal. In your daily driving habits, if you make lots of short trips where you can use the main battery system instead of gas, or you live in a state that gives high rebates on your tax returns, the Volt could be a pretty good deal for you. But this is a car that will only work for someone who has specific driving habits and uses it accordingly. And you'll have to determine that yourself. But if so, the Volt could be a pretty good deal for you. Just one footnote upon closing. One of the biggest criticisms about the Volt was allegedly it cost $80,000 to build, and allegedly it was government bailout money, as in taxpayer money, that was keeping the car afloat. First of all, the bailout money's been paid back, so it really doesn't matter. And secondly, nobody knows how much it costs to build a Volt except GM, and they're not saying. And they don't particularly like the $80,000 figure that's been tossed around. I used it once and got some nasty emails from the GM brass. But here's the deal. Even if it really does cost $80,000 to build, if you're getting the car for low $30,000, I'd say it's a pretty good deal. I mean, where else can you get an 80 grand car for around 32, 35 grand after tax rebates? So in that respect, the Volt is even a better deal. Just thought I'd toss that in. Just another quick update. I put an extra 200 miles on this vehicle. In heavy city traffic, using the gasoline engine only, I'm getting around 31.5 miles per gallon, which means on the freeway we might be able to reach the 37 miles per gallon that was advertised on the price sticker. I also notice the more I drive the Volt, the more I like it. And I think the criticism the car is taken for being a white elephant or a ripoff for taxpayers is a bit overblown. If you've driven the car for about a week, you find out it's really not a bad car to drive at all. Thought I'd toss it in before we go.